The Film Crickets are intended for mature audiences. Any guests on the Film Crickets do not necessarily share the same opinions as the Film Crickets. It's time for the Film Crickets with Jay Fortier, Chris Martineau, and Melanie Howerton. On this week's episode, the Crickets are joined by TikTok and Instagram sensation Jordan from Can't Buy Me 80s.
Vintage 80s has to be everything. Everything pastel, including the amazing vintage 80s furniture. Has to be. I love it.
Jay, Chris, Melanie, and Jordan review the 1980 American independent slasher film, Friday the 13th.
Boy. Is he dead too? The boy, Jason.
Jason?
In the lake, the one who attacked me, the one who pulled me underneath the water.
Ma'am, we didn't find any boy.
Then he's still there.
Does it stand the test of time? Let's find out. Your Film Crickets are on now.
All right. Hey, friends, and welcome to the Film Crickets. It's a podcast where we talk about movies from 1980 to 1999 and decide beyond a shadow of a doubt whether or not these movies stand the test of time. I'm your co-host, Jay Fortier, and along with my good friends and co-host, Melanie Howerton.
Can you see me, guys?
Yeah.
Mostly, yeah.
And I'm along with my good friend and co-host, Chris Martineau.
Yet another smooth start for the Film Crickets. Hi, Jay. What's going on? What's up, Jason?
Hey, what we do.
What's up, Jason? All right. So I'm going to call you, we're going to make sure we don't call you Jason at any point. It's going to get awfully confusing. So,
right.
But
I go
we're here.
Anyway.
Yeah, so we're here ready to go. Jay, who do we have as our guest today?
Yeah, we have Jordan today. She is from the Instagram channel Can't Buy Me 80s, and we're happy to have her.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
I know you're such a big 80s fan, and we couldn't get more. Really, this is like the first probably summer blockbuster of the 80s because it came out in May of 1980, and it was a big hit. So we could actually call it like probably the first one of the 80s. It's
Yes,
Friday
definitely.
the 13th. So, and she's got her Camp Crystal Lake shirt.
Yep.
Yeah.
And my Camp Crystal Lake earrings.
Get out of here. Oh, boy. Wow.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That is hardcore. I see. I'm assuming that is not actually Freddy in the corner of your room over there.
You never know.
That's right. It does kind of look like a silhouette, which is kind of frightening. Fantastic. And I want to thank you for embracing that 80s style and looking like every senior photo from my yearbook. Very nice. Very nice. I can dig it. Hey, guys. So, Jordan, I'm assuming here that this was your choice. This movie was
actually, I asked her if that was okay because I'd seen she does have photos of her, like I think even wearing the sweater, like like Betsy Palmer's.
Oh,
like,
boy.
sweater, right? Like, didn't you have like a thing where you were walking around? Like, was it at the Crystal Lake area?
Well, whenever I go on like camping vacations, I'm always like, we got to look for a lake because I need to film some content here. If there's a lake, I need to take some photos. And then the last one was actually a canoe. I found one that had a canoe that looked very similar to the one in the movie. And I'm like, Mom, hold my phone. I don't care if people are watching. I got to take some photos in this.
That's cool. All right. Go ahead. Go.
Oh, I recently got a costume for Chris Higgins because I want to do a video related to her. So I got like her blue sweater and like her pants and everything. So hopefully I can get that video out soon.
I just wanted to ask, like, are you, obviously, your 80s is your niche. You have found some spiritual center with that decade, and I can certainly appreciate that. The question I have is, are you an 80s horror fan?
Oh, yes, 100%.
Okay,
80s slasher, 80s horror, one of my favorite genres.
All right, that's so I guess that what I was saying is your content is more get around everything 80s, but certainly could we then say that your favorite genre of movies from the 80s is horror slasher?
Yes.
Okay.
100%.
Because
Yes.
that did seem to permeate everything, like back in the day with the boom of the video cassette culture and that coming into play suddenly. Certainly that comes up, and horror movies are insanely cheap to make and quick to make, and they're good for an easy scare and an easy thrill. So so let's get into this. What do you think? Let's get into this movie now. Guys, we're going to talk Friday the 13th here, and usually I say, what's your history with the movie? When was the first time you saw it? Where did you see it first? All that sort of thing. What I would actually like to ask this time, I'm going to start with you, Jordan, is I want to know, of the Friday the 13th movies, can you tell me which one you saw first? And then follow up, can you tell me the order in which you viewed them?
So I did start with the first one.
Okay.
Because I heard highly good things about it, and I was just getting into my 80s slasher phase. And I was like, Friday 13th, we got to watch this.
Okay.
And so I started watching it, and I think I was like 12 or 13 maybe.
Okay.
Probably not the best age to watch a horror movie.
This one's mild.
And then years later, I got into, okay, let me just buy like the whole DVD set. And so I just bought them, and I watched them in order from that.
Okay, cool. So
But yeah, it wasn't until years later after I saw the first one I got into, maybe I should watch all the other ones.
And when you saw it when you were 12, again, therapy later on in life. No, I'm kidding. Again, this one is so mild compared to a lot of it's more mild than things you see like on The Walking Dead and things like that, right? So this is certainly breaking some ground. But so you saw the first one and you said, this is my jam. I'm into this. I want to see the rest. And you watched them in order. Up to 10 or Freddy versus Jason as well?
Up to all of them. I've seen all of them. I've seen the remake. I'm not too fond of the remake. Don't hate me if you guys like it. I don't really like it.
I didn't
but
see
I've
it.
seen all of them, yeah.
All right, cool. Hey, Melanie, let's talk to you. What's your deal? What's your history? First one and then in order. What do you got? If you can remember.
So I saw them in order. And the first one I remember being, I just always, like, in the beginning when you see Annie walking through town and she's getting to the gas station and there's the dog that she starts talking to. Mm-hmm. I always remember that part because I remember watching it at my grandmother's house and I was really, really little. And I remember thinking, I probably shouldn't be watching this. I just knew that I shouldn't be watching it. And I remember like looking over my grandmother, like watching it at her house. So I always remember the very first time I ever saw that. I just remember always just seeing them in order. I have watched these movies 45,000 times. I can't even begin to tell you the amount of times that I have watched Friday the 13th, especially lately because they were on Stars. And whenever I was getting ready for bed and just like wanted to put something on.
Really? Okay.
That was comforting.
Okay. I'm gonna back out of this now. I'll see y'all later.
I didn't it doesn't scare me whatsoever. So I just wanted to put something on that was like, and I'll say it again, it's like mashed potatoes and meatloaf to me.
Comfort.
I just put it on and put it in the background, and it's just this comforting thing in the background, and I don't know, it's just something I've seen so many times, it's just, I need to put it on, just like Halloween. And so I'll just put it on in the background and then go to bed.
Wow.
And so all the time, so I can't even literally tell you how many times I've seen them, so.
Not a lot of people.
Friday the 13th and Halloween's I watch them more than like anything, and then the Scream.
So not a lot of people know Melanie's alarm clock actually goes ch-ch-ch.
That's right.
That's amazing. I love that.
Oh my God, Jesus. Okay, I didn't know I was in a room full of psychopaths, so that's nice. Hey, Jay, what's your deal with this, man?
I saw. It was funny. I was about 9 years old, and I saw. It was staying at a hotel, and that's when we were getting cable, like maybe like a year later. So we had no cable yet. Everything was just whatever we had, like the channels on the TV and
the six channels,
local networks, and that's it. So it was a huge deal, and we weren't like blowing tons of money at this vacation. It was like a swimming pool, a couple of restaurants, mini golf, and then we were also very excited, like, holy crap, look what's on this movie. There's all these movies, and so my first one in the genre in this series was part 2, which does a recap right at the beginning of part 1.
Yep.
They were famous for doing that for about 3 or 4 of the movies. Like they were like, hold on a second, just in case last year. And actually it was perfect for me. So my first introduction was Jason being the villain, knowing full well that was the mom, but it was like I always got to that one later. I was like, yeah, but the third one's coming out and he's in it again, right? Mm-hmm. So I kept going with those for a while. I don't specifically remember when I saw the first one. It was somewhere mixed in. But because I started with Jason as my anti-hero or whatever you want to call him, it became something I leaned in the direction of. So I was like, yeah, but he's barely in that. It was like I didn't, and so I didn't really care. When I saw it, and I always found it to be like back then, I can appreciate it more, but I found it to be a little more dull in comparison, just because of what I was already into. So
reminder here. Yeah, I mean, reminder that it is classified as a suspense horror film. So it really does lay into making us look and wait for the thing to happen, which I will give it credit in that it assumes it makes us be patient and wait for it to happen rather than just being an orgy of blood and guts, which I'm a fan of orgies of blood and guts. I'm just saying that it is more of a suspense movie, not unlike Halloween, which it cribs from constantly. Anyway, so let's get into me. I started with 4. And the only reason I started with 4 is because I was into film horror documentaries early. I watched Scream Greats, which is where I was introduced to Tom Savini. Jordan, if you have not seen Scream Greats, you should try to stream that somewhere. You would like it. It's all Tom Savini, and it's a documentary just on him from '84. So it's has a lot of like synthy 80s soundtrack in it. And I watched it over and over and over and over and over again, at an inappropriate age, probably 1984. So, maybe 85. So 5th grade, 6th grade. So I watched 4 first because that one is kind of like talked about a lot in the documentary. And then I had a dry period with Jason. I didn't really care about him too much because every time I'd watch a horror documentary, I saw something with Jason in it. So I saw all the scenes. I felt like I didn't need to see it. I already knew it. You know what I mean? So I saw 4, and then I'm pretty sure after that I saw 2. And then I waited a long time and watched Jason X, which is hysterically funny. Oh my God, it's a black comedy. I recommend Jason X to anybody. Jason in Space, come on. And then Freddy vs. Jason. Then I went back and saw 3, which I didn't like. Then I saw 1. Then I saw 5 with the Film Crickets, which is basically softcore pornography. And then 6, which is actually kind of my low-key favorite because it's the most digestible of all of them. I think it's fun, but it's not... I like bloody, but it's fun and it keeps you engaged without being like super silly and like ridiculous.
Yeah. 6 is amazing.
I like 6 a lot, and it's next to 1 the least kind of bloody gory, I think. Yeah, so anyway, so I had watched them, and this is like I did a rewatch earlier today. I knew exactly what was going to happen, of course, but again, looking at it with fresh eyes. So, and we got to talk about, again, we've got Jordan here, so we've got to talk about the 80s aesthetic, where this movie's coming from, out of the late 70s into the 80s, and how that preps us for everything that's coming up. So let's get into the movie. I'm going to give you the IMDb breakdown, if I could actually say it. Betsy Palmer gets top billing in this movie. So funny. So funny. All right.
That is.
Friday the 13th came out in 1980, rated R. 1 hour and 35 minutes. A group of camp counselors trying to reopen a summer camp called Crystal Lake, which has a grim past, are stalked by a mysterious killer. Director is Sean S. Cunningham. Writers are Victor Miller and Ron Kurz. Stars Betsy Palmer. Top billing. Adrienne King. And I'm not going to go through everybody except to say that Kevin Bacon is in this movie. That's all I've got to say about that. So let's get into Friday the 13th. So guys, here's the thing. I think back to the 80s when you left your house in the morning and your parents said be home by 7. And as long as you're home by 7, they never kept track of you. And this movie is classic for that. Complete. I'm taking a job at a summer camp and I don't know when I'm coming back. And that's the setup for this movie. Otherwise, the trail of bodies would certainly raise some red flags. So let's start out with this movie. Who here, after finding the first few dead bodies, would have just run from the camp?
Oh, yeah.
Just run.
Yeah.
I would have.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Like that's the one thing that was getting me. And how many people in this room think they could probably take out an old woman physically?
maybe her, but not Jason. I might be able to mess with her. I don't know.
Like
yeah,
you just get.
Yeah, she kept reacting if she got hit, like ah, like like and falling over. So,
Yeah.
She actually played a normal person who was, meaning like she of normal strength, kind
Really
of.
normal. She's just a little psychotic.
No, I meant of like not supernatural. Like Jason like launch somebody like over a house, like stuff that makes no sense like physically at all. Like it's like what, but. I do want to say one thing prior, like to the absolute beginning. Does any piece of music get you excited more than Michael row your boat ashore?
No doubt.
I thought you were gonna say something else.
I love
thinking about that. I'm like, they're sitting there like, hallelujah, and they're like looking at each other.
Not only that, yeah. It gets me in the mood like no other, like Michael row your boat ashore, any other of those like kind of campfire spiritual songs absolutely gets my blood boiling. I can't
Apparently
wait
it's not working very well because you're not refraining from anything, man. Let's go hit the road.
I know.
I just thought it was great. It was so
is that like their safe word? You know what I mean? Is that their safe word? Like when you hear Michael row the boat ashore, that's the time to go. Like what is happening? What is going on?
The very first person to be killed that you're talking about right there is the kid in the beginning. His name is Willie Adams. He's the production assistant for the film.
Sure.
Yeah, and then he loves saying that he was the first person that ever got killed by in the Jason Friday 13th franchise.
I mean, I'd brag about it too. I'd totally brag about it.
The beginning's supposed to take place in 1967.
50 something.
I thought it was 60.
I don't know. Did he get killed in 50 something? Right?
Yeah, he got killed in 57.
I apologize.
Right.
I heard the number wrong.
It was like 10 years later or something.
Oh, it was a year later when she killed.
A year later. That's right. Yeah, it was a year later when she killed that couple.
Was anybody getting 50s vibes out of that room? I think the only tip off that it was supposed to be the 50s was the boy who was wearing Chuck Taylors. Besides that, I was getting no.
Yeah, it was actually just like if it weren't for the title, it said 1958.
Yeah. I'm sorry
about the year if I didn't see that.
And I noticed like the girl who was getting killed up there, she just kept going back and forth. It's like pick something up and throw it at this person.
There was a tire this big,
have all this crap around her.
There was probably like a 1 foot tire with a rim. I was like, pick it up, just whip it out.
Go ahead, kill me. I'll just stand here and let you do it. It's like,
I mean, there was so much stuff up in the attic. She could have just grabbed something.
Exactly.
Like, there was a chair. I mean, just go and whack. Like,
obviously she wasn't dressed in like a mask or anything. It was her own self. They knew it was a girl because the guy was like, "Hey, how you doing? We're not doing anything up here." They knew, so they knew it was like an older lady. Like, you don't think I can try to take this woman down a little bit?
Well,
they didn't even try.
I do like that, and again, as being the granddaddy of these kind of monstrous, pardon the expression, slasher films, it does give you. It is as subtle as all get out. I mean, the way that's written, when he says we weren't doing anything, like he's talking to an adult. He didn't just go, "Hey, what are you doing here?" Which you could say to anybody, right? So he's automatically trying to defend himself, and there are times in this movie where it is that it's a whodunit, basically, right?
Yeah.
And they're very subtle in the way that they are going to try to portray who this person could be. We know it must be an adult figure, but we don't know man or woman, which I thought was interesting. And I
like that about that.
It is.
I think it makes it like an average stalker movie, and like I remember because all of them are kind of a little tacky a little bit, but I remember watching them and I was like, God, this is really a good movie. I mean, it really is. I mean, it's very suspenseful and it's a mystery and you don't know who's doing it. And you know that Mr. Christie, when he's like, hey, hi, what are you doing out here at this time of night? It's like a normal person that they know who it is. So it's really like a stalker.
Or just somebody, who would look at her and think a threat.
For sure.
Yeah. I don't think he knew her necessarily, but he was like, hey, what are you doing?
I know Mr. Christie did know her.
Oh, did
he? Because she even mentioned it by name, but she used to be the cook. She used to be the cook when Jason died, which is funny because she killed Annie the cook, but that was supposed to be the cook, but
it's always funny when the cook dies.
At the camp. I know, but you know what I mean? Like, she killed the poor cook that was just like, and I always felt bad for her, Annie, because she was like, I just love kids. It's just a passion of mine, and blah, blah, blah. Like, she's talking about how much she like, the mom's killing bad camp counselors for having sex and blaming them that her kid died, but like, she's talking to somebody who's like is doing this job because she loves kids so much. So I kind of felt bad for Annie for that. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. She's a good, she can tell that she like really cares about kids, and you're going to kill her anyway, but whatever.
But can I just before, and there's a lot of, it's weirdly a lot of subtext in the movie, and there's a lot of things that they let you stew on. So good for the movie for allowing us to be patient, but I'm going to direct this at Jordan as you're the guest, but anybody else can pop in. I don't know if you've ever been in a room where someone was murdered next to you, but why is it? How do you, Jordan? I'm going to go to you. Do you think you would just freeze, or would you panic and run? Like, if someone was surprised next to you, got slashed in the throat, like the first person that we saw, and then was, oh my god, like, is it me? Is it an 80s? Like, we have been, unfortunately, in our society, we have all been trained wherever we work that we're supposed to, if there's a active shooter, you got to engage or run or whatever. And this one is like, everyone just shrivels up. I don't know what I would do. Jordan, I'm asking you. If you're in a mood, I don't know if this ever happened to you, but if you're in a room where someone is murdered next to you and you saw who did it, would you just quiver in fear, or what do you think you would do?
I would think that I would probably either just scream and then run.
Okay.
I mean, part of me is like, yeah, I would totally go up and try to fight the person. But again, it would depend on who the person is, and if they're armed or something. If I have like a knife or something in my hand, like somehow I have it, so I'm gonna be like, well, yeah, maybe I'll like go over and on my way out go stab and keep running.
The stab and run. That's a very good form. Good form on the stab and run.
I don't know if
very
I can
nice.
stay there.
You've been practicing.
For my safety, but yeah.
I just wonder. I understand, like, if the person came in and shot him with an M16, then I'm dead. It doesn't matter what I do. But it seemed like you don't have anything to. It's just crazy. Like, I don't know. I'm not saying I'm going to be Mr. Brave, because I'm not. I'm in a sense a coward. I'm just saying, like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what I do, but it seems to happen a lot in this movie where they're just stricken with fear and cannot move.
Especially the girl that's like up against the blue curtain that just sees that the axe is coming, and she goes,
"Oh yes, yes, Marcy."
A 5-minute gap between. That freaking thing is just like slowly coming in.
Yeah.
Like, I can see if it were actually Jason, the Jason of 2 through 11, a giant person who is noticeably unstoppable, then my brain would probably freeze and go, I don't know what to do. Nothing seems to work. But a middle-aged woman in a sweater? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Nothing against middle-aged women in sweaters. I'm just saying, like, they could probably do some damage because, again, I'm a coward. But the fact of the matter is, like, I don't know. Anybody else, Melody? You seemed like you wanted to contribute to that.
I'm dying to answer that because it depends. So
it depends. She's planned it out, folks. She's planned it out.
Seriously, because we just watched a horror movie and we were just saying, this girl deserves to die. Just kill her already. Because she was the dumbest person on earth in this movie. Like, she just did everything wrong. But if I could go through the stuff, you would just die of the things that she just let happen to her because she's just so stupid.
Go.
This movie that we watched, it was the dumbest movie. But so now if it's Jason, that's different. If you like say it's going through the Friday the 13th and you know who Jason is and that he's already supposedly dead and he's unstoppable and you can't do anything about it, then obviously you got to get the hell out of there. And I always say that, like, when he's killing somebody, he's busy. That's the perfect time to get the hell away. Don't just stand there and go, and watch. That's your time to run. Get out of there. He's doing something. He's occupied. Run.
And he doesn't really run that way, so you might as well get a head start.
Get a head start. You have to get a head start. Now, if this is a different scene where, and this drives me crazy, where there's like in one of the screams that we watched recently, there's 4 people in the room, and there's one guy with a knife. That's 4 against 1. He doesn't have a gun. He's got a knife. You pick up the nearest lamp or piece of furniture. Somebody get him. If he gets 1 down, there's 3 more that can tackle the person. So get on this guy. Don't run away because he's just going to come after you. Everybody should attack that person. Now, I always have taught my girls this at a very young age.
Oh boy, when you're stalked by a
Okay.
man in a hockey mask with a machete.
Yeah, no, listen, if they're ever attacked by anybody, ever, at any time, and I said this to my girls today because we were watching a movie, and, you know, they're lucky enough to get the person down with a blow for something, that's pure luck if you can actually get the person down on the ground. The person's down on the ground, okay, I'm just going to run away now. No, he's going to get back up and he's going to be more mad than ever. You never, ever, ever stop banging that guy over the head until you know he's never going to get up ever again. He's going to be a pile of mush. He's never getting up. Because if you just knock him over the head once and run, and like every single movie we've ever watched in our lives, 2 seconds later they're up and they're back and they're so mad. It's like, you know, this is like, I guess we wouldn't have horror movies if somebody did that, but it's just the fact that, what are you doing? You got him down. That's so lucky. Like, don't let him get back up again.
Yeah.
Or
No.
like, cut his hands off. What can he do without his hands?
Melanie, did the storm kick in?
No, it just stopped a little bit.
Okay, I was like
Yeah.
all of a sudden, like I heard like a fan.
No.
Or something, like,
Or I think like, poke their eyeballs out. They can't
Yeah.
see.
No, go for the eyeballs. Always
Go
go
for
the
your
eyeballs.
eyeballs.
Yeah.
Go for the hands. If they don't have hands or eyeballs, they can't get you that good.
All right, so let's go back to the 80s bit. So again, we're going to get into the Jordan's
Lots of
wheelhouse
time to
here.
think about that.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and you mentioned it in this film we have this, it's not a new idea of the final girl, but we have this idea of these kind of quote unquote helpless counselors that kind of wait to be slaughtered.
Yeah.
Do you feel as though that set up, because Jamie Lee Curtis is not that in Halloween. She's a fighter by the end, right? This final girl's kind of weak. And then, but are we setting up the trope of, like you said, we're going to run away as fast as we can, but we both know that if you fall down, you're going to wait until the serial killer comes up and you're going to scream the whole time until that gets axed. So as an 80s trope, does that annoy you, or do you find that like fun because it's the 80s? Because that was an 80s thing. Do you understand what I'm getting at here? It's kind of a weird question, but all right. So,
Well,
like, do you dig that, or you go, "What the fuck is happening here?" Like,
I'm like, it's kind of weird because at the end of this movie, she just gets the canoe and goes out in the middle of the lake and then falls asleep as if, you know, so like she could easily come on over, like swim, but like you just decide to get a canoe and go out onto the lake. Like, wouldn't you be like more petrified? You try to run back to the road.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's cool. It really depends on the person and the character. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, no, that just didn't work out.
Okay.
And sometimes I'm like, okay, yeah, that was a decent thing to do, but it's still a dumb move.
Okay, yeah, because that's part of the thing that people get I think people we're nostalgic and you know, we lived it, but you're discovering it, is this, like, these things are corny. Like, there's no doubt about it. It's corny, and you either like it because it's 80s and corny, and because it's setting up the stuff that we see nowadays, or you think it's an actually legitimate thing. So that's what I'm curious about, how you felt about it, because you're seeing it from a different perspective than we're seeing it. We saw it, and we saw what it turned into, and you're looking at it like, well, that's corny, and it's cool because it's corny. So which side are you on? Is it cool because it's corny, or do you think it's a good thing to do?
I think it's cool and corny, but at the same time, like, I try to separate slasher from a horror movie a little bit. So I grew up with, you know, these like really high quality CGI movies. Like, oh, that looked real. Like, that's freaky. But then, you know, you get back to the 80s stuff and it just looks cheesy to me because I grew up with the more higher quality stuff.
Yeah.
But some people, like my mom, is like, I've never watched those movies because they frightened me so much as a kid. Because that's all, like, you know, people grew up with was this was like the high end stuff. But it's definitely like, I like it because it's corny and it's 80s and it's cheesy, so I get a good laugh out of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't really say that the movies scare me.
Okay.
If that makes sense. It's really difficult to scare me in a movie. But these movies, they don't scare me.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Like, to me, and again, I'm I'm older, so I've seen all of this stuff. So I don't get. I know the jump scare is coming. If a jump scare can get me, then good for you. Because again, I've seen about 100,000 movies, and I know what they're setting up. So let's talk about the movie then. So in Friday the 13th, why this movie is actually pretty good. It's suspense. It's a slasher, but it's not, it's different than Halloween, even though it steals from Halloween quite a bit. But in this, it does 100%.
Oh, by the way, I don't know if Melanie already has something on that. They basically said we want to do our own version of Halloween.
Yeah.
When they were writing it, like they knew full well because, one of them had made Last House on the Left with Wes Craven, and it was obviously the craziest, scariest, darkest, scary because it's so damn terrible.
It's gross.
Well, no, and then he had that as a, an unfortunate credit in his head, and then they made like these cheesy kid movies. Like in the last couple of years prior to that, like a knockoff of the Bad News Bears and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, they were like, we got to do something else that's, that gets us into a different area. And then, they basically wanted to make their own version of Halloween. And I think, the reason people like it is because it was so close to Halloween as far as the time.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like... So, when carbon copies of this and everything started to come out, that's when people were like, what the hell? There's 80,000 versions of Jason now, so it became watered down. But it was early enough that it could sustain its own little...
it still worked for the time.
Yeah.
I have a comment to that, but before I forget, I was looking to get this movie for free. So I was looking on Tubi and whatnot, and... Tubi is great for the 1 million versions of the Amityville Horror, Amityville in Space, Amityville in Space being my favorite. But I saw on I put it in the search bar, and I think they were trying to trick me because there's a movie on Tubi called The 13th of Friday. No shit.
Oh my God.
No doubt. But the thing is, the reason it's kind of, first of all, I know that we like the soundtrack, but it's basically Psycho.
Also, Jaws.
And Jaws, right.
Yeah.
So they stole from that, which fine. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. People steal good ideas all the time, whatever. And the other thing is that it's the same setup as Halloween. Halloween starts out with, it goes from Illinois to Haddonfield to the high school to the neighborhood to the street to a house to a closet. That's all of Halloween. It goes from this to this. And this is the same thing. We have a person coming in to a town, after the initial murder, coming into a town. So it goes from the town to a diner, down to the whole camp, down to a couple of areas of the camp, down to one cabin, down to a canoe. So it starts here and it ends here. So it's slowly drawing you in so that you feel like you can't escape, even though you can escape. And the other thing that it takes it from Halloween is up until Halloween. Halloween is the granddaddy. Sorry, it absolutely is the granddaddy. 100%.
I have to apologize.
No, it's the granddaddy.
Apologize. It's great.
But Friday the 13th does it well. It steals a little bit, but it does its own thing. But up until Halloween, horror movies were either Universal monsters, Frankenstein, castles, Dracula, Wolfman, things like that, or the devil. The devil. Devil was the antagonist, and now with Michael Myers, he's just crazy. And I was talking to my wife about the movie because she goes, "What are you going to say about Friday the 13th?" Michael Myers is just crazy. There's no reason, if you just look at Halloween just by itself, Michael Myers kills because he's evil. He's not the devil, he's evil. And Donald Pleasance says it all the time. Why does he do this? Because he is the evil. With and we're not going to say Jason, obviously. With Jason's mom, with Betsy Palmer, she's crazy.
Pamela,
and evil,
I think, right?
Yeah. She's crazy, Mrs. Voorhees. She's crazy, probably a little evil, but she's got a reason that she's doing this stuff.
Yeah.
It's not a justifiable reason because the people that are fornicating in the camp have nothing to do with her kid, but whatever. It's not normal, but it's more of a... So in this regard, the antagonist, spoiler alert, the eventual, when we find out who the killer is, she adds more of a motivation than Michael Myers did for at least Halloween 1 before they started to mess around with the other stuff. Now imagine this. If this movie's a whodunit, how much would it be different if Columbo were in it? All right, that's all I gotta say. Man, I gotta...
And also it said that she suffers from schizophrenia and Chance.
Well, yes.
Well, it said that. It said she suffers from schizophrenia and then the PTSD from her son.
Well, she was talking to herself a lot of the time too, so I could see that. She was talking
Yeah.
to like multiple people, not just
Yeah.
Jason.
Mhm.
So I could definitely see a little bit of those traits in her. Yeah.
A lot of the time, she was only in the movie for 10 minutes. What are we talking about
Yeah.
here? What
I'm surprised she's the main one on the top of the
I
credits.
know. I'm
You know what
teasing.
I was thinking when you were talking about the canoe at the end? Like, I just thought of that. Like, and I don't know why I don't know if you guys even put this together, but 3 ended the same way. She did the same thing in part 3.
Yeah.
The girl at
Yep.
the very end put herself in a canoe and went to sleep. She did the
And
same
then-
Yeah, that was a
Like-
little dumb. I love that movie, but that wasn't. I saw that
And then
I
it was like-
come on, you can't do a different ending.
I know. I don't know why I didn't even think
And then it
about
was a woman that jumped out. Like it was like Betsy Palmer or something like that. Like jumped out and like grabbed her in that one, right? Like I don't think it was Jason, because Jason was
I
lying
can't
in bed.
remember. I haven't seen it in a long
The-
time.
you-
And it's
Jason
so weird.
had
I'm sorry. It's so long. I've seen this so
for
many
it.
times. I'm thinking it was the mother. I think it might have been.
Which is
the
weird
mom.
because her head was severed.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They get back on the pod.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then again, they don't
Exactly.
care. The fans don't care usually.
I gotta look that up. I'm thinking that. I think you're right.
Nothing's worse than the ending of part 8. I don't want to get too far off track, but anybody know about that?
I don't
I
Part
know.
still can't get over part 8 when he's like,
Oh.
hit me, and then he has the one
Manhattan?
chance to hit
Yes.
him.
Yes.
Right.
Oh, that one. Yeah.
Well,
Oh,
but-
I know you're talking about the ending. Yeah, dumb as shit.
Anyways, Jason gets washed away by toxic waste in
Yeah.
the sewer, and then turns back into a child.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Makes
Yeah, that's
zero
something.
Well, also, if you're going to talk about that, Betsy Palmer says to
The worst
fans that
ever.
she has no idea who this character is in a hockey mask.
Yeah.
She said, "My little boy died as a little boy in 1957. He drowned, so I don't literally know who this huge man is in a hockey
I
mask."
was about to bring that up too. Like, if Jason died, then who the heck is this? Like,
Mhm.
Right,
Exactly.
it's proven that he died.
Yeah.
That's when it was.
Yeah,
like,
I guess like what was it? Which one was it? Was it part 2 that they explained that in? Like when they were doing the I don't want to scare you or anything, but
Yes,
was that
that's
part
what-
2?
yeah.
and then
that's like
he-
a whole recap. Yeah.
Yeah. So then like one of the main characters in that one was sitting there saying, "Well, what if it's true? What if he really didn't die? And what if he just was living out in the woods and then saw his mom get decapitated and then it went crazy?" So they were trying to make it. Remember the girl?
But why
saying,
wouldn't he go see his mom then? Like, you think if he saw his mom, he'd be like, "Mom, hi."
Wow.
Here, you don't have to be crazy. Yeah.
I
What
have
did you
barnacles
first
on
do?
me and I'm a little bit decomposed, but Mom, what's up?
Yeah.
How's it going? Mom, get the meatloaf!
Like he's not even decomposed. Like he's like this big, stocky, muscular guy that has somehow,
blow up.
and you can see bones on the outside of the muscles.
Yeah. That's
Well,
always
but-
good. I always like that
but
when my bones are
you know,
outside the muscles. That's what muscles do. They kind of are encased by bone. That's obvious. It's
I know-
the
I
bones
know-
don't carry muscle, but that's fine.
Yeah.
I know we'll cover this when we take care of part 2 someday, but I do want to elaborate on the thought of like people just wanted it. They wanted
Yeah.
this movie. They wanted something like they loved Halloween. They wanted to feel this way again, so they just accepted it. They were like, "Okay, it's Jason. He's an adult. I don't care. Go."
Yeah.
It
Pretty much.
doesn't matter. Like so, it's like, go ahead, ask the question. I don't care. That's the answer.
Yeah.
Like it's
Mhm.
like they don't want to explain it because it's like they're okay with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
they realize they can crank out one of these every year. And they're cheap to make and they're quick to make and whatever. And people are going to watch them because they know at this point, and all of us are horror fans. We are in the business. Like, I don't mean we're in the horror movie business. What I mean is we will watch anything you put in front of us. And if it's shitty, we'll say it's shitty, but I liked it. Or if it's shitty because it's shitty, we'll complain about why it's shitty because that's entertaining too. Or we'll say, no, that's
every horror
awesome.
movie that
Like
comes out.
we're in it. It doesn't matter. Like you can just put on whatever. I do find I get a little like after I've watched about 8 in a row over consecutive days, I'll go, maybe I'll watch something else now. But like you do get a little bit of sick of screaming and stabbing. But you know,
Except
at
for
the end
Melanie.
of except for Melanie, who uses it as a soothing mechanism for when she's having a stressful day.
White noise.
Jesus
White
Christ.
noise. It's like white noise.
Oh my
White
God.
noise in the background.
Holy
Because I'm just
Jesus.
like, okay, whatever. It's
it's
not
too-
a ghost thing. That's why I can watch Screams and Halloweens and Friday the 13th, and I'm just like, it's fine. It's not ghostly. That to me is more like if it's a ghostly thing, it's more scary to me.
Ghosts
So
can't
Me,
touch
it's the
you.
opposite. Like,
I don't
I'm
know.
afraid
Like
of
I'm like, just like I said, even like the Lights Out woman. Like if you guys ever seen Lights Out, like I can't go to the bathroom at night and not picture the little black hands going around the corner of the. And I'm like, I have to get out of this room. It's dark.
Okay, can I get one better? My wife saw a trailer for something today. It was on the TV. I'm sorry, this is a little bit off, but we're talking about things that are just absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
I guess there's an Insidious movie coming out, another one.
Yes.
And they have somebody in an MRI machine, like a closed one, and a fucking hand starts to come up the MRI. That's the worst thing I've ever heard. I've never been in an MRI. I don't think I'd be scared, but I know people are scared of it. Can you fucking imagine this fucking hand coming? Oh my God. That's horrible.
And then the whole woman like comes in. I'm like, oh my God.
Ugh.
Yeah.
That's bad. That's bad. That's bad. That's
It's
tough.
things that you can't see more that will scare me, or things that you wonder about, like a haunted house or a poltergeist, or I don't know, things like that. But it's like, if it's somebody killing somebody on TV and I know it's a horror movie and it's not based on a true story, it doesn't really scare me. I know it's not real. I'm not stupid. So it doesn't scare me. I'm just like, it just doesn't scare me at all.
Yeah.
Do
For me,
you,
it's just people. People petrify me. Like,
Yeah.
I can think of, demons and ghosts and stuff. Like I don't see them. Like, they could be there. I have no idea. I'm like, as long as they don't eat my food, I'm good.
Yeah.
Or chill. But, like, people. So, for me, like, these movies are kind of like, yes, it's a fictional character, but there are psychopath people out there.
Yeah.
And I think that's what engraves in my head. So, I'm, like, deathly afraid of, like, the dark. And it's not like, monsters and stuff. It's people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that, I don't know that I have the right, but it's a home invasion movie. The Others? Is it The Others?
No.
I haven't seen that in so
No.
long. No,
No, you're
the
talking
other
about-
Others is like they're ghosts. They're
No.
ghosts.
Yeah, that's not it.
Are you
It's
talking
one
about
where-
where everybody's wearing like crap?
Oh God, yeah, love that one. That's
the zipper masks. Yeah.
That
and they
well,
The Purge?
No. But
no.
it's just three people that break
Yeah.
into somebody's home and they just
Oh,
torture them
the
and whatnot.
The strangers.
The strangers.
Yeah.
Yes.
And she asked, "Why are you doing this?" And they said, "Because
Gary
you're
Cushion.
here."
Yeah,
What?
Like, yeah, because you guys were here. Like, fun to
Like,
do, right?
You were home, right?
Yeah. Oh my
that's
God.
the scariest. That is the scariest thing ever. Like
Yeah.
stuff like that will scare me because, like, jump scares and things like that, and it's suspenseful. It's
Mm-hmm.
just that I know when I'm watching it, I'm like, it's not real. But also, that's why I am more paranoid. Like, every door is always locked in my house all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I've always taught the kids, like, lock all the doors when you come in the house. Make sure you lock your car door when you get in the car. And the alarm, we have alarm. Like, I would never not have an alarm system on my house, like, ever.
That's go ahead,
Guys,
Jay.
who doesn't come back to their car and it's foggy in the car? You go,
I think of Halloween.
Yeah.
no, check in the back. I'm checking that back seat, man.
Oh, that's what I always do. First thing when I get in my car, I look behind me before I shut my door to make sure nobody's there.
Especially when it's fogged up. I'm like, why is it fogged?
Yeah. Yeah. She sat there for a minute and
like,
not
what
one
the
and
heck
thought
is
about
that?
it.
The chances of anything happening are almost none, but the fact of the matter is it ain't zero, and that's a good place to, it doesn't, that's not, I don't think that's overly paranoid. I think that's just being safe. I think
Yeah.
it's just,
That's
I'll take a peek. I'm good. Let's go.
Right,
You know what
but
I mean?
that is exactly why these movies mean something to us.
Yeah.
Like, I think, because it takes us on that journey with a safe, like, you're eating popcorn,
Yeah.
like roller coaster, type of thing.
Yeah. Oh, it's examining death without actually having to go through the process.
Yes.
100%.
But then it makes you more scared for death. In the
Sure.
future.
Yeah, I know. I guess. No, absolutely. So look, let's we're gonna talk about kills here a little bit. It has become part of the trope, and I don't know that they weren't going for this for the first movie, but as the movies have gone by, it became about conservative America and that teenagers that fornicate need to be punished. Teenagers that break the rules should be punished. And the thing that punishes them should be an unstoppable force that is announced by a storm. So almost godly presence coming down with swift retribution for those of us that are not following the rules, and we should be murdered. That's basically, now they didn't start out with that. And then as the movies went on, I don't think the writers were thinking that. But then eventually, when you get to Jason X and you get to the holodeck, and they say, we don't engage in premarital sex. We love premarital sex. And then, that's how they trap Jason in the holodeck. That's like the funniest moment ever.
Right, and he's beating the shit out of the tree,
Yeah.
with the body in the thing, and they're still giggling.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
They're in the wrong like mode.
Yeah. So let's go back. So the as the movies go by, they make the behavior of the teenagers worse and worse, so that when Jason comes along, you kind of want them to be punished. Again, whatever. That's the movie's business, not mine. In this movie, okay, you got some. They're not even camp counselors yet. There are no children there. They're just helpers. And they're hooking up.
Only children in it. Only one part 6 has a kid.
Are they really misbehaving that much? Or are they just
No,
doing...
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. In that crazy lady's brain, she needs to prevent it before it even opens.
That's
so,
the crazy...
Okay,
and
you're
that's
all
the
here.
thing. Yep.
Okay. It's ending before it starts.
Mm-hmm.
And she tried giving him, Mr. Christie, a warning several times. It said that the water went bad at this year. There was fires at this year. So if you listen to the beginning when that guy is in the truck giving Annie a ride, you can already tell that she was already trying to prevent this from happening again. So she set fires at one time. She ruined the water supply at another time. She killed that couple at another time. And no matter what she did, it kept getting worse what she did. He just kept dumping money into it, trying to reopen it. So she was like, this time, I'm just going to kill every one of them off. Nobody's listening to her. She tried several times to warn them. But
It really is the most violent Scooby-Doo episode ever.
Yeah.
It really is. All right, Zoink Scoob, we're gonna get an arrow in the back of the neck.
Hey, guys, besides obviously seeing someone get killed or coming across a dead body, I would say finding a strange man in your pantry. A very scary.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Crazy Ralph.
Oh my God. Yeah. Right?
Yep.
And he pulls it off brilliantly. In
He
both
did.
parts 1 and 2, he dies in part 2. But his voice and he's scary just in his own warnings, the way he's like,
You're doomed.
Right? But
He looks like a Scooby-Doo character.
You guys want some really cool trivia?
Yeah.
Hit it.
He narrates the opening of part 7.
Really?
Oh, really?
Wow.
That's cool.
That is so
so
cool, and not in
cool.
that same manner.
There's a legend round here. A killer buried, but not dead.
I never knew that.
Yeah.
I love part 7, too.
So check that
That's
out.
pretty cool.
Can I
Tell me
want
about the music, Jay.
Oh, all right, yeah. Harry Manfredini basically said into the microphone after seeing the film, how she's going, kill her, mommy, kill her. So he basically said, he went, for the kill, and then it was with an echo chamber, or some sort of basically a reverb that was like a delay. So it went, kill, mama. And he put it together. So it basically sounds like, but so you can't hear the ma that clearly. But
Doesn't sound anything like that.
right, but I mean, I guess if you do listen for it, you can sort of hear the M, but it's just sort of blended together, so you're not hearing it that clearly.
I will say, here's my opinion on the film, though. Ready? So it's good, no doubt about it. Not whether or not it holds up. I was more interested in the first half than the second half. I thought the suspense was really tooled up nicely, up to when once everyone started to die, I actually started to lose interest because I was actually into the suspense and the setup and the whodunit, and even all the subtleties, going back to the guy in the truck talking to Annie, and he's giving her first, and she says, "You sound like the old weirdo guy that said, don't go out there, it's cursed." And he's telling her all the reasons why she shouldn't go. And he's like, well, I have a job. You cut from that scene where she's getting all the information as to why this place could be dangerous to the next scene where it's another truck, but it's with the 3 other teenagers, including Kevin Bacon. And they're just as ignorant as they're just driving in and ready to go and ready to do their job. So it's almost like they're not getting any of that warning from anybody. They're just driving in like sitting ducks. And to me, that was a very interesting moment. Again, the movie don't hit me over the head. Give me the suspense. And they're setting up the suspense by having these 3 innocents just basically driving in without any background information. I thought that was really interesting. And then setting up like all that little stuff, like you said, the place burnt down and it had bad water supply. It was probably Betsy Palmer the entire time. You have to figure that stuff out. It's when the kills start to happen that I get a little bored. And the kills take too long. The last section of the movie, the last 23 minutes, when it's just the final girl and Mrs. Voorhees, those 23 minutes, that's a third of the runtime.
And you don't need the strip Monopoly scene that's like, what the hell? It's like going on forever.
Yeah,
Like,
that's when it started turning into like, this is like, it really does start to like, okay, I did fast forward a little. Like, let's get to the thing. Like,
guys, what about who's the doofus that shoots the arrow?
I know what you're talking about. I don't know what his name is. I can't remember his name.
I think it's Ned, right?
That's his name, Ned. Yeah.
Okay.
There's always a doofus in it.
Right. But like, it's weird because I look down, and then a little later I see him dead on top of the bunk with his throat slit, and I'm like, did I miss a kill? Like, did I miss something?
No, you didn't.
And then I had to look it up, and apparently if you don't see him walk into a freaking cabin, you totally miss the fact that that's the last time you saw him. So I was like, I don't even remember him walking into a cabin.
And he even said too, everyone sees her, and they're like, "Do you need help?" Or do you know? I don't know what he said to her, but he saw her standing on the porch.
Oh, I'm not saying but I'm saying it is kind of weird how it just sort of happened, and then they don't show him die. So like, when the hell did that happen?
Yeah.
I like that though. I like that because you kind of already suspect that he's already dead because he saw her on the porch and then he disappeared, and
But
just don't look down or away, or else you'll miss the fact.
Yeah, right. Then you're like, what the hell?
So Jordan, did you find, like, are you intrigued the entire time? Does any of this, so compared to other Friday the 13th, which are basically just basically putting people through a meat grinder, which is incredibly entertaining. Did you find, and you like this movie? Now, I'm not saying I don't like this movie. Did you find any of it like lagging, like slow, or is it me? Like, am I nuts?
I think it's a little slow, but a lot of times with older slasher movies, like the first half is getting to know everyone, and then the kills start to happen.
Sure.
Right.
So for me, I'm kind of used to, if I'm watching an older movie, it's going to take like halfway through the movie. We got to learn some background stuff. Some people we might not know. And then I think, you also have to take into account, it's also not, like, Jason's not in it. So you're not going to see the slasher until, Mama Voorhees, who comes in like 75% to the movie. But if you're going into it thinking, oh, this is going to be another Friday 13th movie, and expecting Jason to come out in the first 5 minutes, it's not going to happen because... So I guess it's like, if you went to go see it in theaters when it first came out, then that's, you weren't expecting anything, you were just going to go in and see it.
Yeah.
But then if you're going to watch it after you see all the other Friday 13th movies, I can see how it's a little bit slow.
Yeah.
So that's why I sticked with the first one, and then I watched the other ones after.
Sure, and I think
Really
if I had never seen anything like that, and I was in a darkened theater, the time they take with the scenes are to build suspense, and the camera's giving a lot of negative space because you don't know where the killer's coming from, and that's very suspenseful. I'm thankful that you took the time with it. I just was like, it's tough for me to reconcile. This is I couldn't get out of my head, this is a slasher movie, but it's really not. Yeah. But it is, but it's
movies
not.
Differently too.
Yeah, it's weird.
Like, my mom is like, I don't like watching trailers because that's going to spoil the entire movie, which nowadays, when trailers are like 4 minutes long, considering Friday 13th, the original trailer was like 20 or 30 seconds. It just said, watch out when you go to Camp Crystal Lake.
Right.
So I see it, but everybody's different when it comes to movies. It just depends on how you watch it, how experienced you are with the genres, and that's just why I look at it. Everyone's different when it comes to it.
That's cool. No, I'm just wondering, and that's part of the reason I ask these questions. Like, I will always ask people, like, if they say they like something, I want to know why. You know what I mean? I'm not saying, well, why'd you like that? What are you, stupid? Like, it's not a matter of that. Like, I want to know, what is it that resonates in you about this film, or what is it about this film that why don't you like it? Like, I want to know. Not that we're going to argue about it. I just want to know where is it ringing for you? Because you can definitely make the argument, I liked it, but you can make the argument it's dumb and it's slow and it's stupid.
It's not my favorite Friday 13th movie. Yeah. It's not my favorite, but I think it was a good first one to set the scene. And I think, what was it? They weren't even expecting to make any more after it. So then when they had that, I wonder where they got it to get to the point where we're just gonna bring back the kid.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I
Yeah,
don't know how they
that
decided to
doesn't.
do that.
Yeah. Again, you can't. I always go back to Psycho. Psycho is tremendously boring, except for like 4 or 5 good scenes.
Well,
It's boring. It's boring. It's great. It's super duper good, but it's boring. So it's 2001.
What was the ultimate thing? Like people went, holy crap! We just made
just
a
print
gazillion
money.
dollars.
Yeah, you can just print money
for almost no money.
Mm-hmm.
Let's find a reason to bring something back with this name.
Sure.
Yeah.
They were going to call it like Camp Bloody something or other. Like I forget. You might already have the
Camp
info.
Blood.
Well, I did have that somebody said they were going to call it that, but then I also have something else saying that it was never intended to be called that they were trying to screw with people and keep them off track, but they never were going to call it that to begin with. It was always supposed to be Friday the 13th.
Well, whatever. Like I'm just meant.
I don't have it, but I read that. There's like 2 things on it. Yeah.
I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know the exact name, but like it's that alone wasn't going. They wanted something a little more familiar. He put it out as a teaser before anything I think was fully written. They did like an ad, like with the shattered glass and the title, and basically the scariest thing ever or whatever. Like because he wanted to see if somebody would say, "Hey, we already have a movie out there," because they didn't. It's not the age of the internet. They can't sit there and go, let's see, And then there was a movie that said Friday the 13th, The Orphan. That was the only thing that was out there that was made with that title, and they were able to find a way to get it to, still be able to use it. But it's like, that's, and the other thing, guys, I've never been to a sleepaway camp or summer camp necessarily, but we've been outside in the summer, right? Mm-hmm. We know what that vibe feels like. Mm-hmm. The woods, those types of
the
things.
Smell. I could smell the cabins.
Relatable. That's relatable.
I went.
Like that along with like Halloween. Who hasn't experienced Halloween? Right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Jehovah's Witnesses. Jehovah's Witnesses have not experienced Halloween.
Okay. Right. But they probably also wouldn't watch the movie, so they wouldn't get anything out of it anyway. Right? But I'm saying that's I think a major part of what lures people into these things is the atmosphere.
Sure.
Yeah.
If you don't have the right thing with it, like if you just have somebody killing somebody in a house, it's probably the most forgettable horror movie ever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Depends on the house, but yeah.
You get what I'm saying, though. Like if there's nothing relatable that is tied in, I mean that's what's so genius about this. This is not Halloween; it's summer, but people they know the vibe.
It looked like it was from the 70s, don't you guys think? It didn't really look like 80s.
Anything from 1980, 81, still felt 70s.
The fact maybe it was like hitchhiking by yourself from one hitchhiking ride to the next. It's like girls would never do that nowadays.
Yeah.
Jordan was
I was just saying it could just be the camera equipment that they used. I'm not really too sure.
Yeah.
Depends on how much money they put into it.
Stuff. Like their clothes and like just everything looked like late 70s, not really early 80s. You know what I mean?
It takes like
sleepaway camp's kind of the same. I feel like with a lot of campy movies, you have like the striped orange, yellow.
Mm-hmm.
You have more of like a uniform that you have to wear. Yeah. So maybe it had something to do with that, but also, I mean, it's kind of like the 80s didn't just stop at 89. It kind of went into 91, 92,
for sure. Yeah.
Exactly.
That could be the same for the 70s. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, you gotta give Reagan a chance, okay, guys? You just got there, for Christ's sakes. I mean, come on. The only thing I'll say, maybe, and before maybe we do TMI, is I agree with you on the vibes, Jay. I mean, you can kind of smell the forest. I can smell the wood from the cabins.
Exactly.
Even though I've never done a sleepover in a cabin, you can smell that wood, and it's moldy and whatnot. The only thing I would say is that no one once complained about a bug. No one. And if it's summer and it's humid, there's gonna be bugs everywhere. So I don't want to hear that. That's I was out once it didn't mention bugs. I was out on this movie. Just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I was totally bugged by Kevin Bacon's swim attire.
Yes.
Oh God.
Yes.
It reminded me of White Chicks when he looks up and said, "Where'd the sun go?"
Jordan, what was that?
What'd you say,
Jordan?
Jordan?
I was just gonna say that I was surprised he was in it in the first place. I wasn't expecting him to be in it. And I'm watching it, I'm like, Is that Kevin Bacon?
Mm,
Why
Kevin
is he
Bacon.
here?
Right.
Yep.
Prior to being majorly famous.
Yep.
The only other thing he did big was Animal House at the time.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was right around the same exact time. So like he just hadn't gotten launched yet. Well, let's do TMI.
Yep.
All right.
It's time for TMI with Melanie.
Listen to this. I am in the bathroom right before the movie starts. And I'm in the stall, and there's no toilet paper.
Mine are at home in a display case above my bed.
TMI, my friends.
TMI? Too much
I used to say
information.
don't go there, but that's lame.
Now, here's Melanie with your timeless movie info.
I love that bumper. That bumper cracks me up. I love that bumper. All right, go ahead.
Okay. So the budget was $550 million, and the box
Whoa.
office
Whoa.
was
Thousands.
$550,000.
Holy
No,
shit.
I was like, wait a
Sorry?
minute, wait a minute.
$500 million.
That was a typo. I'm sorry. So 550,000, and the box office was 5.8 million. There.
All right.
Okay.
Better.
Adrienne King Alice was pursued by a male stalker who managed to learn areas that she frequented, where she exercised, where she ate. The man took Polaroid pictures of her and would slip them under her door of her apartment in New York. And at one point broke into her apartment and defaced her artwork.
Gross.
On one occasion, the man confronted her in an apartment and held a gun to her head. The assailant was apprehended and spent some time in prison. I wonder what he's doing now. But the incident traumatized her so much that eventually it prompted her to leave the public eye. She did stunts. She actually started doing like stuntman work. Background acting, because she didn't want to be too far in it. She studied dance and she did voice acting. And it took her 27 years to return to regular acting on film because she was so traumatized from it. So she got that stalker pretty much after this movie was over. So she said that she would be in part 2, but only like as little as possible, just in the very beginning, just to get out of it. The idea behind the scenes where the counselors have to kill a snake. I don't know if you guys heard about this.
Yep.
So they find one in one of the cabins, and it's supposed to be separate from Halloween because they wanted to have an early fake scare and to establish that the characters were capable of taking action if need be. Tom Savini came up with the idea supposedly because of a snake that he saw in his own cabin. However, there was no PETA, or how do you say that? PETA? Horrible.
It's PETA.
Okay. Around the film at that time, obviously. So they could do whatever they wanted to live animals, and you could tell it was real. I always knew it was real. So when they took a machete to a real live snake, allegedly the owner was not told that they were going to kill the snake.
Oh.
He was told that they had to borrow his snake, and he said, okay. So he was standing on the set watching and actually crying when this happened, and he had to be held back. And then it said a few cast members later on said that they felt awful and that they killed a real animal on the set. They would never get away with that now.
That's awful. Awful.
No.
Yeah. Betsy Palmer said that if it wasn't for the fact that she was so desperate in need of a new car, that she never would have accepted the role of Pamela. In fact, that when she read the script, she called the movie a piece of shit. Over the years, however, she did warm up to the film as it made her more famous than infamous. And she made appearances at several conventions and documentaries and stuff like that. Tom Savini was one of the first crew members on board for the film because the producers idolized his special makeup of Dawn of the Dead in 1978. He performed the arrow shot that narrowly missed Brenda when she was setting up the archery. The movie mostly was filmed at Camp Nobi Bosco. It's called Nobi Bosco in Hardwick, New Jersey, a Boy Scout camp. They were allowed to film there because they made a sizable donation to the Boy Scouts of America. While most of the cast and crew stayed at local hotels during the filming, some of the most dedicated, including Tom Savini and Tasso in, how do you say his name? Stravinsky?
No, Tsoukalos. He's
That's
Greek.
how you say that name?
Yeah, it's Tsoukalos.
Are you kidding?
Promise. I promise.
Okay.
Tasso Tsoukalos.
It looks so crazy. So they both stayed at the actual campsite. Because the camp was closed during filming and they were situated so deep in the woods of Jersey, the cast and crew really didn't see much outside interference, but it turned out they had a famous neighbor, rock star Lou Reed, who lived down the street, and he had a farm.
Was he on the wild side?
I don't know. They got to watch him sing all the time, and he hung out with them during filming, and he hung around with them on the set, and they said he was just a really great guy. Jason is not mentioned by name until 1 hour and 16 minutes into the film. This was the highest grossing film that year, and then had a lot of competition. Yeah, a lot of competition, including The Shining of 1980, Dressed to Kill in 1980, The Fog 1980, and Prom Night 1980. Wow. And it supposedly beat all those. While the Halloween movies have lots of music, the Friday the 13th movies have very little music. In fact, there was a decision made by Harry Manfredini to only have music in the movie when the killer was present. That's why there's only brief, quick moments of music in the beginning.
Jaws.
Yeah, really horrible
Jaws.
music. Most of the stars of the original movie were actually Broadway stars, and they were sent over by Broadway casting agency. It took 28 days to film the movie. Although it was not Kevin Bacon's first film, his breakout role was Chip Diller in National Lampoon's Animal House and Starting Over in 1980.
Cool.
Kevin claims that he gets asked to sign screenshots from his death scene in this movie more than any other movie he's ever been in.
That's too bad. That's way too bad. But okay.
For his death scene, Kevin Bacon had to crouch under the bed to insert his head through a hole in the mattress. Then a latex neck and chest where appliances were attached to give the appearance that he was actually laying down. Giving the setup took several hours to get that right, so he had to kind of stay in that uncomfortable position that whole time. For the bloody finale moment, Tom Savini was also under the bed and would plunge the arrow up through the neck, while his assistant, also under the bed, operated a pump that would make the fake blood flow up the appliance. To further complicate things, they also had to have a crew member also standing nearby to put their hand on top of Kevin Bacon's hand to hold it down. So when they were finally ready to do it, and it took several hours to do it, the blood wasn't working coming out of the tube. So one of them had to start like really quick because they had one take to do this. They just took it in their mouth and they were blowing in it to try to get the...
It's Tom Savini.
Now, that's the thing. I always read that it was Tom Savini, but in another thing, it said it was the assistant, and the assistant said that he thought as quick as he could and blew through the thing, and it didn't even taste bad. So there was a whole thing. So because there was a controversy of who did it, I didn't write it down. Of who did it, but I always heard it was Tom Savini as well. Sally Fields was offered the role of Alice, but turned it down.
Oh, God.
Well, they also said it cost too much.
Oh, probably, yeah. That's probably why they didn't. Yeah, probably would have cost her too much. The film is rumored to have inspired by I've never heard of this, by a real-life lake bottom murders in Finland on June 5th, 1960. So Janine Taylor, who played Marcy, became the first in a long line of young actresses who was only 16 to perform nude scenes in the movie. When they found out how old she was later on,
Gross.
Yeah, right. So basically when they found that out, they deleted her scene, so apparently it was a lot worse than it was.
Gross.
And then she was so nervous for the sex scene that Kevin Bacon took her aside and shared his marijuana with her to help take the edge off, and she said it worked. And that's it.
I gotta do one. Apologies, Melanie. I was thinking of another actor, Tasso Stavrakis. I apologize. I was thinking of somebody else.
I was like, it doesn't look
I was thinking of another actor, believe it or not, named Tasso. So I apologize for that. Secondly, and I'm going to add before we do final judgment, when Betsy Palmer gets her head cut off by the machete and hands come up, those are Tasso's hands because they're hairy. Those are hairy hands that come up. So just so we know, I thought you were going to mention that.
No, I didn't. But also during that same moment you're talking about, Tom Savini was the one that actually cut the head because he knew exactly where to cut, where everything kind of was connected.
But Tasso's hands come up, and you can see they're hairy on the outside.
Yeah.
So, all right, cool. Here we go.
It's time now for final judgment. Are you ready to rubber stamp this bitch? Here's the final judgment.
All right, now it's time for final judgment. We talk about how well the movie holds up today. It's no longer about opinion, but fact. Well, actually, it's about opinion, but that's okay, right?
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. All right, let's go with Chris.
No, okay. Hey, so I would say while it's obviously dated and the effects are kind of blah, and it's not really, it's a proto slasher, it's a suspense film. I would say it holds up. I think it's got enough going for it that keeps you in suspense and a proper amount of suspense. If you've never seen this before, I'm sure the jump scares are pretty scary. Obviously it looks like it was filmed through a dirty beer glass, but that's just kind of that idea back in the day. I mean, not Stanley Kubrick, of course, but that's what they were going for, and that's fine. I don't really care about wardrobe and whatnot. I think it's of its time. The remake is probably, I know, is a tad sexier in terms of the sex scenes, and I know that it's gorier and all that stuff, but it doesn't make it better. In fact, it makes it worse. So I would say that this movie absolutely holds up as just as a piece of historical cinema. and it's still scary. It's just obviously the effects are a little, you can see better on The Walking Dead, obviously. So that's what I got. So I'm gonna go to Jordan. Jordan, tell me what you think.
I definitely think for an early 80s movie, it is one of the better ones, considering it was a lower budget. Not too low, but a lower-ish type. It holds a cult following. I mean, without that one, we probably wouldn't have all these sequels. We wouldn't have Freddy vs. Jason. I think it's held up over a time, and it still scares a lot of people today. But it's definitely not as scary as a horror movie nowadays. Sure. Because of the effects. But it does give you, for me, it gives me that like nostalgic feel, even though I wasn't alive at that time. Yeah. It gives me that nostalgic feel out in the wilderness. You can't do anything about this. If you're going to run, you're going to get lost in the woods. It gives you that creepy, campy vibe, which I love. I love in an 80s slasher movie.
Cool. All right. Melanie, go ahead.
Okay, so first I want to say that literally every single thing, word for word, that you said, Chris, I 100% agree with everything you said.
Okay.
And I agree with
Jay,
Jordan as
next.
well. It's what makes me feel. And definitely cult classic. So yeah, I totally agree with all that.
Cool.
Jay.
Jay.
Yeah, no, it does. I mean, I'm not gonna go nuts over it because I think everybody's kind of covered a little bits and pieces on why. There is some aspects that do not, like for instance, the guy dancing around like a Native American.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Oh, yeah.
And also I noticed the guy who was giving the ride to the girl helps her into the vehicle by grabbing her ass to get her into the thing.
That, yeah.
I'm like, and then she didn't even flinch, man. Like that was really odd.
Yeah.
She's like,
you know what I mean? Like that. What's that?
Thanks for the hand.
Yeah, but I mean, it was just like, you know what I mean? Like, he could have just held her hand the whole way and then step. You know, I was like, well, that's not going to happen. So, like, there's aspects of it. There's no way on earth these things would happen. Like, and the snake, like getting it killed. You could see the thing friggin' moving after it got,
No, I don't want to talk about it. I felt so bad for that snake.
Yeah, sorry. But, for the most part, it absolutely holds up, because, like, it's the origin, or not the main, but, like, it's the origin of this, series. So, yeah. And this was fun, guys.
Cool.
I really had a blast with this movie.
Yeah. So much to talk about. I feel like we could talk about it for like another hour. There's so much to talk about.
It's crazy.
Imagine we went into all the different movies in the franchise.
Yeah.
An all-day thing. 24 hours.
Yes.
Oh, God.
There's so much to talk about.
Yep.
That was our show, and I'd like to thank Jordan for being here. And if you just want to remind people on how to find you.
Yeah, of course. So my handle on Instagram is campbyme80s with an underscore at the end. And TikTok is also campbyme80s. And now that's getting into horror slasher season. I'm going to try to make some more content that revolves around some of my favorite slasher movies, including Friday the 13th. So yeah, you can find me on there.
Awesome.
Super. Excellent.
That's awesome.
Right. And
Thank
we'll put the links, in the description and everything. So we really appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Yeah. This was fun. I'd also like to thank Steve Lavoie for our vocal imaging and Draco and the Malfoys for our theme music. And please help us grow by liking this video, subscribing to our channel, and be sure to hit the bell icon to get notified when we release a new episode. And tell your friends, please. And my name is Jay Fortier. On the behalf of Melanie Howerton and Chris Martineau, I'd like to thank you again for joining us here on the Film Crickets. And until next time, movies may not age like fine wine, but we drink it anyway.
Chirp about movie.